My parents left my 6-year-old daughter alone at home for a week and went on a luxury holiday with my sister's kids. We didn't have enough space for her in the car, my mother said. I didn't shout. I did this. The next day, their lives started to unravel. I thought it would be another calm week. My daughter, Lucy, thought it would be the best one yet. She was half right. Every year I dropped her off with my parents for Grandma Week, and every year it went fine until this one. If I'd known what was coming, I'd have kept the engine running. Lucy had been counting down for days. 6 neat X's on her calendar, 1 for each night away. She packed her own backpack, 2 stuffed animals, a flashlight, and exactly 11 crayons. "Grandma says I can draw late," she told me proudly, as if staying up past bedtime were an Olympic sport. I smiled, pretending my chest didn't ache. I'd always been uneasy leaving her there. My parents liked things that looked good from the outside: birthdays, photo ops, grandparent titles. Not the actual responsibility that came with them. Jenna's kids always soaked up whatever energy they had left. Still, I convinced myself that a week of grandparents and cousins was good for Lucy, good for her sense of family, even if mine had always felt like an obligation. Their town was only an hour and a half away, but it felt farther, somewhere between memory and exile. By the time I pulled into their driveway, Lucy was vibrating with excitement. "Grandma!" she yelled before I'd even turned off the engine. Mom appeared on the porch, immaculate as ever, one hand shading her eyes. "Well, there's my favorite girl," she said, arms open. She meant Lucy, not me. Jenna's kids, Aiden and Sophie, were already running through the sprinklers shrieking. Travis, my sister's husband, lounged nearby, beer in hand, playing the role of helpful observer. It all looked so normal. Mom kissed Lucy's head. "She's fine with us, Alice." "You look tired. Take the week. Rest." "I always do," I said. I watched Lucy race toward the lawn, her laughter swallowed by the sound of water hitting grass. For once, I let myself believe everything would be okay. My husband and I left the next morning for a short business trip. We run a small design company, and we'd planned the meetings months ago to overlap with Lucy's week away. It was supposed to be easy: work, a few dinners, maybe sleep without alarms. That first evening I called to check in. Mom answered on speaker. I could hear the cousins in the background. "She's right here," she said, then passed the phone. "Hi, Mommy." "We made cookies," Lucy said, proud and breathless. "Good," I said, smiling. "Be good for Grandma." Everything sounded fine. The next afternoon, no one answered. I tried again after dinner. Still nothing. By the time I saw the photos online, I'd already told myself a dozen harmless explanations: phone charging, bad reception, too busy having fun. Then I saw it. Mom, Dad, Jenna, Travis, the cousins, all of them on a yacht. Caption: "Family trip. Finally some time together. Family trip." I stared until the screen blurred. Lucy wasn't in any of them. I scrolled again, slower this time, like maybe she'd suddenly appear. Nope. No pigtails, no pink swimsuit, no Lucy. I called Mom. She answered, cheerful. "Hi, honey. How's the trip? Where's Lucy?" "At the house," she said. "At your house?" "Yes, dear. We couldn't bring everyone. There wasn't room in the car." "You left her there?" "Oh, don't sound so horrified." We asked the neighbor to check in. "What neighbor?" "The one with the dog." "They all have dogs, Mom." She sighed, tired of me already. "She's fine, Alice." I hung up. My husband looked up from his laptop. "Everything okay?" "No," I said. "They left her." He frowned, blinking. "Left who?" "Lucy. At their house. Alone." For a second, he didn't understand. Then his mouth opened a little. "Wait, what?" "I called. Mom said there wasn't room in the car. What? There wasn't room?" His voice rose. "You're joking." "I wish I was." He pushed back his chair. "Call someone." "Call anyone. I'm calling Grandma." Grandma answered on the first ring, voice warm. "Sweetheart." "Grandma, they went on vacation." They left Lucy alone. Silence. Then a stunned, "What? Alone where?" "At their house. They said a neighbor's checking in, but I think that's a lie." "She's 6, Grandma said sharply. "What do you mean they left her?" "I don't know." "Please, can you go there now? You're the only one close enough I could hear the sound of keys already in her hand." "I'm leaving right this minute. Stay on the line if you can." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. 20 minutes crawled by. Then Grandma's voice came back, breathless. "I'm here!" I found her relief and nausea hit at once. "Is she okay?" "She's scared," Grandma said. "She's been eating crisps and crackers." "The lights are all on." She said she didn't want the dark to come back. I pressed my hand over my mouth. "Thank you. I'll stay with her until you get here." The next morning, we were on the first flight back. We dropped everything, meetings, clients, deadlines. The business could wait. Lucy couldn't. My husband didn't even argue. He just started packing before I finished the sentence. The flight felt endless. Every minute in the air was another minute too far away. When we finally reached my parents' house, Grandma met us at the door. "She's inside." Lucy sat on the couch wearing one of Grandma's sweaters, eyes wide. The moment she saw me, she ran straight into my arms. "Mommy." I held her, felt her heartbeat racing against mine. "You're safe now." Grandma's voice was steady, colder than I'd ever heard it. "They left her a note." "Be good. There's food in the fridge." I didn't know what was worse, the note or how normal it sounded, like they were leaving a cat, not a child. The kitchen was a disaster. Crumbs, empty wrappers, sticky juice trails. On the table lay Lucy's drawing pad, a small stick figure inside a house full of yellow scribbles. All the lights still on. Grandma put a hand on my shoulder. "You always believed they'd change," she said quietly. "Now you know." Lucy cried herself out that night. She stayed curled up on the couch, eyes puffy, voice small. Sometime near morning, she finally fell asleep and whispered, half dreaming, "I left the lights on so you'd find me." I sat there for a long time, staring at the crack in the ceiling, the same one from when I was her age. It had widened. Maybe it was always there, and I'd just stopped pretending not to see it. I used to think trust could be repaired. Now I know it only looks that way until the next break. After that week, nothing would ever be the same. The next day, their lives started to unravel. I have one sister, Jenna. She's 2 years older, and she's always been the favorite. She was the star, everyone said so. She danced competitively, the kind with sequins and trophies and judges who smiled too wide. Mom called it her gift. Dad said she had real potential. Everything in our house revolved around that gift. Her practices, her costumes, her nerves. When she twirled, we clapped. When she cried, we rearranged our lives. I didn't dance, I didn't shine. I was the practical one. The one who fetched the water bottle, held the camera, made sure the lights were off before we left for another weekend competition. Mom called me responsible. At the time, I thought it was a compliment. Now I know it was just convenient. When I was 8, they started leaving me home alone. Not overnight, just long enough to forget what company felt like. I'd make a sandwich, do my homework, and pretend the hum of the fridge was someone talking to me. Grandma was the only one who noticed. She lived nearby, and she'd stop by when she knew they'd be gone. She never made a big deal of it, just showed up with dinner and company. She had a way of making an empty house sound full again. Once I told her it made sense that Mom and Dad loved Jenna more. "She's special," I said. Grandma looked at me for a long moment before answering. "So are you, honey." She's just louder about it. That was Grandma. Soft voice, sharp aim. Jenna's teenage years were the peak of her career. She was in every regional dance final, every glossy recital photo, smiling like her life depended on it. Mine revolved around helping her pack and hearing about her wins after the fact. I used to watch from the crowd when they performed nearby, my parents in the front row, waving roses like she was on Broadway. I'd sit a few rows back, trying to clap in time with the music. Then, one day, it ended. It didn't happen dramatically. There was no injury, no meltdown. She just stopped winning. The girls she used to beat were suddenly better, taller, faster. Jenna took a break. The break stretched into forever. She stayed in her room, scrolling through old photos, eating junk food out of boredom and grief. Mom said, "She's just processing." Dad bought her a treadmill that doubled as a clothes rack within a week. When she stopped dancing, our parents didn't know what to do with themselves. Their entire personalities had been built around her next routine. Without it, the house went quiet. Too quiet. For the first time in years, there was space to talk about something else. They just didn't have anyone to talk to. Then Jenna met Travis. He worked in marketing, which I later learned meant he was unemployed with opinions. He was charming, though, enough for Mom to call him a good influence. They got married a year later, and, because life has a sense of humor, they moved into my parents' house. Just for a while, they said, to save money for a place of their own. That was 8 years ago. They're still saving. The house I grew up in became a shared property, my parents, Jenna, Travis, and eventually their 2 kids. It looked the same from the outside, but inside it was chaos. Half daycare, half retirement home. Mom loved it. "It's so nice having everyone under one roof," she'd say, like she'd built an empire. Dad just nodded, probably because he'd learned long ago that disagreeing was bad for his health. I moved an hour and a half away with my husband and started a small business. We had Lucy, my quiet, curious girl, who loved books and bedtime stories and still believed the world was kind. When Lucy was old enough, I started bringing her over. At first, I stayed for the weekend, just to be sure she was comfortable. She adored her cousins, Aiden and Sophie, wild, loud, always sticky from popsicles. Jenna liked to joke that Lucy was the calm one, which, in Jenna language, meant the boring one. I didn't argue. Being boring beats being reckless. Over time, Cousins Week became a tradition. One week every summer where Lucy stayed with her grandparents and cousins while I worked, or more truthfully, recovered. Lucy counted down the days every year. I counted the ways it could go wrong and told myself it wouldn't. Mom always said, "Go enjoy yourself, Alice. You deserve a break." She said it the same way people say, "Go ahead. We'll keep the cat alive." Looking back, the pattern feels obvious. They'd always taken care of Jenna, her dreams, her mistakes, her family. I'd just never realized how far they were willing to go for her until they crossed the line from careless to cruel. If you'd asked me back then, I'd have said I trusted them. Not because they earned it, but because I wanted to believe they'd learned something over the years. But people don't change. They just get better at pretending. Grandma sat at my parents' kitchen table like she'd just walked through a storm and hadn't decided if she'd survived it. In front of her lay the note my parents left for Lucy. "Be good. There's food in the fridge." Her voice was calm, which somehow made it worse. "I can't believe my daughter wrote that." No one answered. The only sound was the refrigerator humming, the same one that kept the food my mother apparently thought could raise a child. Lucy was asleep on the couch, finally calm after hours of crying. My husband stood by the window, jaw clenched, as if trying not to put his fist through the glass. "I always knew your mother was selfish," Grandma said. "But I didn't think she'd leave her granddaughter alone." "She said the neighbor would check in," I muttered. Grandma's eyebrows rose. "Which neighbor?" I shrugged. "The imaginary one, apparently." That earned a short, bitter laugh. "Well," she said, "imaginary neighbors aren't much help." "You're reporting this, right?" "I will," I said. "Today, Alice." Not eventually. The police station was 10 minutes away. The officer listened, his jaw tightening as I explained. "So she was alone for how long?" he asked. "About half a day," I said. "They left that morning for a week-long trip. They planned to leave her alone the whole time, but I found out and called my grandmother. She got there that evening." He kept writing, slower now. "Unbelievable," he muttered. I handed him the note. "That's what they left behind." He nodded once. "We'll start a welfare investigation." When he asked if I wanted to stay anonymous, I shook my head. No, they need to know exactly who called. By the time we left the station, the sun was setting. We went back to the house, packed Lucy's things, and cleaned what we could. Grandma kissed Lucy's forehead before we left. "You're safe now, sweetheart," she said softly. "And I'll always come if you need me." Lucy smiled sleepily. "Promise?" "Promise." We drove home that night. Nobody spoke. Every few miles, my husband's hands would tighten on the wheel, then relax again, like he was still trying to process the fact that we were driving away from people who thought this was normal. A week later, my phone lit up with Mom's name. I answered on speaker so my husband could hear. "Hello? What did you do?" Her voice wasn't confused. It was furious. "I filed a police report," I said, "for child abandonment." "What? What police report?" There was a shuffle, and suddenly Jenna's voice cut through the line. "Don't lie, Alice!" "We're not talking about that." Then came the shouting, both of them at once. "What did you say to Grandma?" "She's lost her mind." "She's giving the house to you." "She's throwing us out. Do you think that's funny?" I blinked. "Wait. What?" "Don't act innocent," Jenna snapped. "Grandma changed the trust. The house is in your name now." "I didn't even know she had a trust." "Sure," Mom said, dripping sarcasm. "You just happened to end up with the house." "How convenient." "She's not confused," I said. "She's angry." "There's a difference." "Angry because you filled her head with lies," Mom shot back. "You've been jealous since you were a kid. Of what, Mom? Your parenting? Or Jenna's trophies?" That hit. I heard her breath catch. Jenna came back louder. "You've destroyed this family." "No," I said. "You did that when you left a 6-year-old alone with a fridge." The line went dead. My hands were shaking when I called Grandma. She answered immediately. "I was expecting this call." "I just got off the phone with them," I said. "They're saying you changed the trust." "I did." "Why?" "Because I've spent 78 years cleaning up other people's messes." This time I wanted to prevent one. I sank into a chair. "They think I made you do it." "I know." "They came by already?" "Yes. I told them to leave. Then I called my lawyer. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she said. "They won't try again." "They hate inconvenience more than consequences," I laughed. "They're calling it elder abuse." "That's new." "At least it's creative. Grandma, why give me the house?" She was quiet for a moment. "Because I can't leave it to someone who thought that roof was fit for a child to be alone under." "It's my decision, Alice. You don't owe me thanks." I took a breath. You're sure? I'm sure. Now promise me one thing. Don't let them near Lucy again. I promise. Good, she said. Then we're done worrying. After we hung up, I sat at the table, phone still in my hand, heart still racing. The police report, the house, the calls. On paper, it looked like justice. In real life, it felt like exhaustion. Maybe families like ours don't break all at once. Maybe they just keep cracking until one day someone notices the floor isn't holding anymore. I thought the shouting was over. I was wrong. For 3 days, everything was quiet. That kind of quiet that feels borrowed, like the pause between thunderclaps when you're not sure if the storm is moving away or just catching its breath. Lucy was back at school. My husband buried himself in work. I tried to go back to normal things, laundry, deadlines, pretending to sleep. But my phone kept lighting up with missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. On the 4th morning, the quiet broke. It started with my cousin from Ohio. I just wanted to check on you, she said, drawing out the words like she was calling from a soap opera. Why? I asked. She hesitated. You haven't seen it? She didn't need to explain. The minute I hung up, the texts started rolling in. Screenshots, links, everyone tagging everyone. Mom had posted a long, trembling paragraph about betrayal and manipulation. Jenna added a shorter one. I'll never understand how someone can destroy their own family for money. Travis, never one to miss attention, commented, #elderabuse. By lunchtime, my name was trending locally, a sentence that should never happen to anyone without a publicist. I called Grandma. She picked up on the second ring, voice brisk. People keep calling me, she said before I could speak. Asking what's going on. Something about computers. I told them I don't do that Facebook nonsense. It's not nonsense, I said. Okay, it is. But they're lying about you. Of course they are, she said, calm as if we were discussing the weather. What are they saying? That I made you give me the house. She snorted. That's creative. I can still think, last I checked. Do you want to see what they're saying? She hesitated. Might as well. I hate when people describe things badly. I drove an hour and a half back to their town, to Grandma's place. The small house she's lived in for more than 30 years. She moved there back when my parents got married, after giving the big house, my childhood home, to my mother through her trust. Write down my passwords, she said as soon as I came in case this kills the computer. It's not going to kill the computer. You don't know that, she said. I set her up at the kitchen table. It smelled like tea and clean air, the way it always did at her place. She leaned close to the screen, squinting. Good Lord! They used my wedding photo. Where did they even get that? Probably from Aunt Carol's endless album of family mistakes. She scrolled. Mom's post, full of sighs and prayer hands. Jenna's essay about family loyalty. Travis, doing his usual lawyer impression in the comments. Grandma's hand trembled once, then steadied. All right, she said. Enough fiction. Let's tell the truth. You don't owe them anything, I said. I owe myself a good night's sleep, she replied. Show me where to type. Her post was short, clean, and sharp. I changed my will and my revocable living trust. I did it because my daughter and her husband left their 6-year-old granddaughter alone in the house I own while they went on vacation. I found the child myself that evening. No one tricked me. I'm not confused. I'm angry, and I'm done. The big house will go to Alice, who remembers what family means. The others can find another roof. She hit post, closed the laptop like she'd just ended a meeting, and said, There. Now they can chew on that. The reaction was instant. Within an hour, her post was everywhere. People I hadn't heard from in a decade were messaging me things like, "Your grandma's a legend." Mom deleted her own post. Jenna locked her profile. Travis tried to argue in the comments and got eaten alive by the internet within minutes. Grandma watched it unfold like someone watching a chess game she'd already won. "They always forget," she said, "that I raised half this town." 2 days later, Jenna showed up at the door with flowers and sunglasses. Grandma didn't open it. She watched through the window until Jenna left the bouquet on the step, then waited another hour before tossing it in the trash. "She brought carnations," Grandma told me over the phone. "You don't apologize with carnations." That's like saying sorry with a parking ticket. When my husband Lucy and I visited Grandma that weekend, her little house felt like a different world. Peaceful, steady, untouched by the noise in the town. Grandma had baked cookies. Lucy sat on the floor drawing while we drank tea. "They've been calling again," Grandma said casually. "I let it go to voicemail." "What if they show up?" I asked. "I'll call the police," she said, "and maybe the newspaper." "They like updates." I laughed. "You really don't scare easily, do you?" "Not anymore." I already outlived their approval. She poured more tea. "You know, I used to think silence kept the peace. Turns out it just gives bullies better acoustics." When we left, she walked us to the door. "If they show up again," I told her, "call me first." She smiled. "I'll call whoever gets here faster." Lucy hugged her tightly. "You're brave," she said. Grandma winked. "Don't tell anyone." "It ruins my reputation." That night, back home, I scrolled through Grandma's post one more time. The storm online had mostly passed, but the truth was still sitting there, pinned to the top of her page like a scar that healed on its own terms. One comment stood out. "Sometimes the loudest families get quiet when someone finally tells the truth." Maybe that was us. They wanted Grandma's silence. Instead, she gave them the truth. Loud, public, and permanent. 6 months later, everything finally settled. At least on paper. My parents, Jenna and Travis, moved out of the big house after their 30 days were up. They rent now, all together, in a small duplex near the highway. No more yachts or luxury holidays. Rent does that to people. The police investigation ended with a charge of child endangerment. They got probation, a fine, and mandatory parenting classes. No jail, but the report made the local news, and suddenly everyone's favorite family became the town cautionary tale. Child Protective Services also came knocking on Jenna and Travis's door. A routine check, but embarrassing enough that even Mom can't spin it into a victim story. From what I've heard, the house is loud with fighting and quiet with resentment. I don't call. They don't either. Silence has never sounded this peaceful. Lucy and I visit Grandma every week now. The drive isn't bad, an hour and a half of car karaoke and snack crumbs. Grandma pretends to hate the noise, but she always waves from the porch before we're even out of the car. We're planning a short vacation together this spring. Somewhere sunny, somewhere simple. Lucy's already packed 3 books and a bathing suit. Grandma says she'll bring crossword puzzles and sunscreen for the pale ones. Life feels small again, in the best way. Steady, quiet, honest. So what do you think? Did Grandma do the right thing? Did I, by reporting it? Did we go too far? Or not far enough? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more.